I think it's two things, right? I think one is the identity part is really important. Your identity is mom or dad, then once the kids don't need you as much, like who are you then, right? I think two is if you and your spouse have been operating along different lanes for a decade plus, what's that new shared experience,
Yeah.
right? And three is how do you build something that's yours? You kind of lose that. So I think let's start there. Like, how do you build something that's yours? Welcome back to Select the Best. I'm your host, Michael Chang. I'm here with Elizabeth here.
Hi, everyone.
What I want to cover today is what happens when the kids eventually move out of the house, when they go to college. I think there's a big disconnect when, you're a parent and you've been taking care of the kids their entire lives. As they get older, you're probably less involved. I heard you become their Uber driver, basically, just like sending them from here to there. But once they're out of the house, then one person, the stay-at-home parent loses their identity. And what do you do then? Like, what do you do then? Because you don't have anything that you're doing. How do you reconnect with your spouse? How do you contribute to the household?
Yeah, so I think the stay-at-home parents, a lot of time, you don't realize you're doing a lot for your family. You're sacrificing your career, for example, to be with your kids. And as they get older, leaving the house, slowly you will want to find something to do with purpose that you are passionate about and want to contribute to the family again. But then I think what we have realized a lot of people is they've been gone from the job market for a long time, right? Going back to a career could be difficult. So what are some of the paths you can take and why we believe short-term rental investing is one of the most powerful way and actually a really good fit for any stay-at-home parents who's looking for a way to contribute to the family. And also not only that, it really help you find that purpose and find that identity back at the same
Yeah, I
time.
think it's two things, right? I think one is the identity part is really important. Your identity is mom or dad, then once the kids don't need you as much, like who are you then, right? I think two is if you and your spouse have been operating along different lanes for a decade plus, and the kids were kind of the glue that or the shared
Mhm.
experience, what's that new shared experience,
Yeah.
right? And three is how do you build something that's yours?
Yeah.
You kind of lose that. So I think let's start there. Like, how do you build something that's yours? I think from our experience, being able to build something that we own collectively, but also have our own separate identities. I think for me personally, I've always enjoyed building businesses. Real estate for me is the vehicle for that. Being able to build the team, the process, the technology, the infrastructure, the reporting, all that stuff around business and seeing that grow. And for me, that's a big part of my identity. Functionally, I'm a stay-at-home parent. I'm at home, I take care of the kids. They're in school, I have to work on the business, and but I have that identity with me that's no longer just an investment banker, that I am a business owner.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoy that. And I think that's where, having this business provides that for me as a stay-at-home parent, if that's something that they lose. I think as a man, that's like that's the identity that I want.
Mm-hmm. And then for me, I think I enjoy the investor angle of building a portfolio. I love looking at real estate from a very young age. And I know that's kind of a path to financial freedom eventually, and which is the goal that I wanted to achieve early on in this journey. And just like having that ability and flexibility, looking at property, buying the property, and think about how to design that in a way, marry my skill set from my career in fashion and also the love of real estate together through short-term rental. And to me, that practice and the journey of it is very fulfilling. And I get to do it while being a stay-at-home parent as well, being able to spend time with my kids. So that combination of both, to me, is a really amazing combo. And I think can be very suitable for a lot of stay-at-home parents who's looking for another way to provide financially or even just personally for your identity.
I think most people would have been like, oh, mom, female, fashion, like design would be your thing. I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear you say, or not surprised, but maybe that wouldn't be the first choice to hear you say investor. And I think this is where, finding your identity early and just really honing your craft now for 10 years, being a real estate investor. You have this canvas that allows you to kind of paint the life and what you want to do for yourself versus, waiting 10, when the kids are older, maybe the opportunity isn't there anymore. Something that you hold very deeply, your love of real estate, you're quite actually an excellent investor. And being able to hone that craft and build that identity for yourself while being a stay-at-home mom, being a stay-at-home dad, wanting to be a business owner, right? Like, and I get to do that too. And it's a really nice
Yeah.
way to, concurrently, being a good dad. I hope my kids will agree when they watch this later on when they're a little older. They're young now, and being a good business owner.
And I think a very nice surprise benefit that comes with this being stay-at-home family, both of us, is being able to work on this together. You also find a different side of each other, and really you have more things to talk about all the time, right? I think we touched on this before, maybe in different episode, but I think just really nice. We have complementary skill sets.
Well, I think the Korea example,
Yeah.
when we were at dinner, sorry to interrupt you, but I think that's like a very, you give me a perplexed look. But like
Korean example?
No, when we were in Korea last week,
Oh, okay.
right? Like we, that extra gear, sorry to cut you off, but like, we were, like, let me explain that point before I hit like how we utilize that. I mean, not utilize that, but we were able to kind of fall into that when we were like a little annoyed at each other on the trip.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because your point was we have this different thing that's not just kids, that you and I, like our shared touch point, our shared project. I guess shared project, maybe that's the right way to think about it. Most spouses, their shared project is the kids, right? Or I hope maybe they have a hobby together, they work out together. That's like, we've seen that with some of our friends. That's like a nice way for them to connect. But a lot of people, it's actually just their kids. Remember the neighbor that used to live across from us?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
He's a banker and wife's
three kids, right?
3 kids, yeah. He's a banker, is back in New York. Wife is a doctor.
Yeah.
They moved out to Long Island, 3 kids. I was getting coffee with him. He was like, "Oh, what do you guys do?" I was like, "Oh, it's cool. Like, you have stuff to talk about." He's like, "Yeah." And then we were talking about banking. He's like, "Do you miss banking?" I was like, "Not really." And then he was like, "Yeah, dude, it's like me and Jennifer, we have nothing really to talk about. It's the kids. Like, she doesn't understand like my job and my problems, and I don't understand her job and her problems. And like, you kind of just are able to unweigh, kind of just like, you don't really understand." And then at a certain point, it just becomes like very like performative too. Like, "Oh, honey, I hope you feel better. Yeah, that person's stupid. Like, don't worry about that. Or client's dumb." But you don't really understand when you have a real joint project. Like, you really do understand. Like, if the property's not performing, it's like we both feel it.
Yeah.
But we both like really understand. And like, okay, well then you do this, I do this, and let's try to fix it. Or if we're like buying a new property, when we bought the new property in Tennessee, I had my lanes, you had your lanes. We had a lot of cross pollination on like what
Yeah.
we're doing, and it was just like a very different gear on how we work together. And I think that kind of stay-at-home parent vein, especially if one spouse is working outside the home, right? That the husband and wife, they're like doing their own thing, they have their own challenges, and you just kind of like you move along the same direction but different paths. And with short-term rentals, like it's a way we've seen that with our clients. Like they have a joint project together, they do stuff together,
Yeah.
and it strengthens their marriage. And I think for us, so back to the example in Korea, remember at that dinner and like
I don't remember about what.
exactly. See,
I kind of remember it happened. Now you mention it, but I kind of forgot already.
Yeah, and also
Yeah.
you just kind of forget. You just kind of forget because things you just kind of like figure it out and then
Move
kind
on.
of just move on. But what happened? We were going to dinner. It was like a full day together, and then obviously it was your fault. You said something. You said something. Joking aside, we had a disagreement about something, and like you were annoyed at me, and I was annoyed at you, and we were just sitting at dinner. They like brought the menu. We kind of like we weren't really talking. We were just like, okay, let's just get this fine, and we're just kind of sitting there, and we didn't want the trip to like have a bad note or anything to it, right? And then we're working on our conference. We're throwing a conference September 21st in New York, and I was like, okay, well, maybe you want to just like talk about some of the conference stuff, and then because we hadn't really talked about it, and then we use AI, we use Claude to like kind of both share about like what we were thinking, and then it kind of just opened up the conversation a little bit. We just had a different lane to something to talk about, one of our other businesses, and kind of broke the ice, and we
Yeah.
both kind of
Feel
like
better.
you're helping me, I was helping you, we were talking, and then we ordered a drink, and then I think dinner was fine. Then the rest of dinner was really productive. We like had a joint project we were working on, and we made a lot of progress, and it was great. And then we took like a nice 30-minute walk afterwards, or walking around the little side streets in Itaewon, and that was fine. But I mean, I think that like
I think that would be a
annoying,
silent treatment
yeah, for the
dinner.
whole dinner, and then afterwards, kind of like we'll walk a little bit, and then you or I would be frustrated, we'd say something, and then it'd be kind of like the couple that's standing outside a restaurant talking loudly to each other, right? And then, but they ended up being fine because we just.
Yeah.
Because sorry, just like for most couples, it's like the thing doesn't really matter. It's just like you're just kind of mad at each other because like you spend a lot of time with someone, like
Just a little annoying.
you're just a
And
little
then want someone
annoyed.
else to break the ice first.
Yeah, you don't have that one. You just need something to kind of like break the ice and just like we're good, and then you just
Yeah.
move on. It provides that. It's
Yeah.
really nice, yeah.
And yeah, that's the nice part about running the business together is you're always troubleshooting there's always
So
problems.
much problem. There is.
There's always
It's like
problems.
kids. There's always problems.
We'll wake up every morning with one property had this issue, the other property had this issue, something happened. There's always troubleshooting and solving problem on the go. So I think through that experience, both of us in the business together, we learn how to communicate better. I think that's a really nice bonus,
Yeah, it is.
yeah,
It is.
for our marriage too.
Better husband, wife, have better parents. I think on the AI part, I think I was actually it's an interesting thing because now you kind of have like a really smart assistant, or you have two very smart, I guess depending on how many phones you have two very smart assistants kind of with you all the time. So if you're always like doing something, we both have Claude Max plan. It's like $120 a month, but it's quite useful. We're both working on separate projects, but we have joint projects together. And we're kind of be able to like, even at dinner, just kind of work on something. And then like, oh, okay, well, there's some analysis that we want done. And then you kind of like, usually you would be like, okay, well, let's put it aside and we'll work on it when we get home. But now you can just like tell Claude to like do something or analyze something for you. Oh, we should talk about the Myers-Briggs thing too. That was actually really fun. That was really fun actually. We should talk
Yeah.
about that actually. But when we were working, so we have this like joint project that we share. And then kind of like, I'm talking to my assistant, she's talking to her assistant. We're like eating dinner, but we're just like, oh, hey, we're like trying to solve a problem, talk to the AI, but it takes like 5 minutes to do work. So just like talk to it, it's on the side. She's talking to hers on the side, and then we like have dinner and like we're eating and everything. Like, oh yeah, hey, this is what it found. And so you kind of have this like conversation. It's just, I guess it sounds a little strange probably for folks that are like, oh my God, you have this like AI at dinner or anything, but it's a way for us to like just continue to we have that extra lane together, and it's like a superpower because you have this like really smart assistant, and then you continue to make a lot of progress because we made a ton of progress actually at that hour and a half dinner.
Yeah.
There's the conference planning that we just like was on vacation, like we were kind of pushing it,
Yeah.
and then in the hour and a half, glass of wine helped too. But like it was nice to just,
Yeah. And then
and then we
it's
felt
not
very accomplished too, by the way.
Yeah, and it's not saying we didn't have a really engaging dinner together. We still had. We
Yeah.
enjoyed every dishes, every meal, had a great conversation throughout. It make us even more productive because
Productive.
we had the goal to have to make progress on the conference that day, and that really helped amplify the result.
I think it was also because we saw that we had a finished work product, right? Where we had like draft 2 of the entire run of the show, of like who we're going to invite, of like how we wanted to run, just
Yeah.
like a bunch of stuff, and then like ideation and like gifts and just things that we wanted to do, and
Yeah.
it really fleshed it out. So I felt like very accomplished afterwards. I think that was like, oh hey, look, we did something together. Like, yeah, we walked in, we're kind of annoyed at each other a little bit, but we had a nice dinner, and like we actually accomplished something that we were both like wanting to do, and something we had to work on together,
Mhm.
and kind of walked out of that. Like I think I was feeling pretty good. We took a nice walk, and then we found some cool alleyways, and you're like, oh, okay, it was just like it ended up being like a really what could have been kind of a quiet dinner, and then like an awkward Uber ride back to the hotel, and then brushing your teeth, and then someone like says something, and then you kind of like you're just kind of awkwardness.
Yeah.
And then the awkwardness was like much more limited. It was like a few minutes, and then we found something, and I'm really productive, and then it just made the trip really nice.
Yeah. I think that was a really good example of how we were together.
Together, right? So now that you have this shared project together, every person retains their identity. You have this shared project together, and then fundamentally just the financial benefit of working together. The SR tax loophole, for those that don't know, is you can buy a short-term rental, buy an Airbnb property, and utilize the tax savings from that property against your active income. When you buy real estate, generally speaking, you cannot use any losses there to offset your work income. It's called passive activity loss limitations. The reason short-term rentals work is because you materially participate in the operation of that property, right? And then there's certain tax rules that you have to meet. The most commonly known one is the 100-hour rule, which basically means that you and your spouse together must perform at least 100 hours of material participation on the property that you buy, setting it up, operating it. A really nice feature is your hours combined.
Hmm.
So if you're single or you're married filed separately, that doesn't apply to you. But if you're married filed jointly like us, IRS sees us as one person. We're two natural people, but as a tax entity, we're one person. So I do 50 hours and Liz does 50 hours, or I do 100 hours, Liz does 100 hours, our hours combined, which is really nice. So it's a nice feature, again, of being kind of married together. And then the second one is not only they combine when her and I are doing separate things, but when we're together doing something, like working on the new property, for example, it might have been 10 hours of like actual time, but you and I doing it together is 20 hours of
Yeah.
tax participation time, which is a really nice feature. If you're listening and, your kids are at school or they're in college or they're in high school, you're kind of trying to plan out for once they leave the house, this is a really nice way and one spouse is working. It's a really nice way for one spouse to contribute to the home because it's a big tax savings.
Yeah. And I think by that time, unlikely you're trying to find another full-time career. So this is a nice way to invest the active income the families bring in as a whole and really invest it in something that's more long-term in terms of wealth planning. So real estate really is a great vehicle for that.
Right.
On top of that, you get the tax benefit, of course,
Well,
that you touch on.
well, that too. And if the other spouse is working, maybe, you're like, hey, I think a lot of people also are like, well, we'll work for another 5 years, but I also want to think about retiring and spending more time together as the kids are out of the house and you've made enough money. So not only is it something to do, but also one, take advantage of the fact that you still have a W-2, so you can get a mortgage. You can get a big mortgage or a good enough mortgage at a good rate to leverage your W-2 income for financing while you're paying taxes on your W-2 income. Like start deferring some of that, saving some of that tax so that you can reinvest it into your future. If all your money is locked up in your 401k or all in the stock market, like you're not diversified. And if we have a market downturn, over a few years and you hit retirement, it can be kind of stressful, right? So you kind of want you want some diversification in terms of your asset allocation. And you also want some cash flow, right? Because once you stop working, you're relying on your investments, right? So whether it's dividends from your stocks, or you're just taking from your savings, like it's kind of a painful thing to see that balance drop. What if you live longer than you expect now with all the longevity stuff? Maybe you don't live, maybe you live to 85, 90, 95, 100. Like who knows? Like with technology these days, it'd be really, really crappy. You start running out of money at age 80 and you're relying on Social Security.
Yeah.
Like who knows what Social Security is going to be in 20 years. You want something that continues to generate cash for you. Airbnb's definitely better than long-term rentals is something that will allow you to do that. So it really hits a number of different things as you're thinking about, or if you're close to retirement. It doesn't have to be 65. You've done well in your career. Kids are grown, almost out of the house. You want to spend some time with your spouse, have a joint project together, build your identity, leverage the benefit of the job, the taxes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really nice benefits to it. But then you have to work with your wife or your husband. And we have some friends who are like, I have no idea how you do that.
It's a process. I would say the first year could be hard. It's just
I know it's hard for me. You're right.
hard for me too. Gotta figure out your lane and
Gotta
really
figure out your lane.
yeah, and really try not to like cross.
Well, I mean, I think there's going to be crossing to be.
There will be cross. Sorry, I'll rephrase this.
Yeah.
It's more like you figure out your lane and then just make sure those are the decision. You're the final call on the decision. You obviously share opinions and exchange information, cross your lanes here and there. But final call, for example, on the tech side, you're driving that. From the acquisition side, I'm driving that.
If you've been married for a long time, I think naturally one person's, you start identifying what one person's good at, one person's, what each person's respective strengths are. And a little bit of that too is like being able to, some humility too, having some humility where your other spouse, you need to defer to them. I think it's a process. It wasn't day one. We definitely had our fights in the beginning and we still have our disagreement. I think there are less fights now. There's more like disagreements. We definitely have that. It happens. We have the conflict resolution. It's a very, very well-worn path between me and you on like how we resolve conflict. Because ultimately we have businesses we run, we have clients, we have properties. Like we can't not talk to each other for a day or two. Like we have to communicate, we have to problem solve, and just it's kind of a forcing function. Like
Yeah.
we have to know how to work together. We have to resolve conflict. We have to move forward.
Yeah.
And kind of the example of at the restaurant in Seoul where that was part of that. We're just like, well, we have this other thing to do. Why don't we just work on that? And then the annoyance part, like that stuff will just kind of, and we love each other, and I forgive you, and
Yes, always my fault.
I'm kidding. No. We are stay-at-home parents, and our kids eventually grow older, and we become empty nesters.
Yeah.
We kind of building that foundation early.
Yeah. And it's a really nice way to teach your kids too how this works, real estate, how it works throughout the process, which is nice.
Yeah, some tax benefits from having your kids involved early on too.
Hire your kids.
Hire your kids.
If you have a business, learn how to hire your kids.
We're funding their Roth IRAs from the real estate business already.
Yeah.
The crazy part is our very young kids, they have a bigger Roth IRA amount than I had in my 20s. It's crazy. Like,
Yeah. You start early,
you
that
start
the
early.
compound
The
works.
compounding works. Kind of just like a relationship too, right? Just like us, we've been together for 12 plus years now. And like, the compounding from us building the businesses together early on, as we continue to, we continue to grow as people and different identities, like that compounds too. And we're gonna, we're here in Taiwan. We're not working, but
We are working.
not
just
well, yeah, but
in
not
a different
like,
form.
yeah, but but on our own time,
Yeah.
the way that we
That's-
want.
That's exactly why we're doing all of these, right? So
Well, but I think that's what people want when they're retired and empty nesting. It's like then you get to construct a life that you want. And it's like I don't wait forever to
yeah.
like doesn't always don't have to wait till you're 60.
And then the way I think about retirement, it's not like, oh, I do nothing. It's more like I get to enjoy what I want to do. You can still enjoy working when you're retired. It really never ends. I feel like entrepreneurship take you to this role, like you enjoy the process and it brings you back into it over and over again.
Exactly.
You just never really want to do nothing. You'll always be working on a new project, a new idea.
So, folks, if you're listening, you're in that stage of your life. We hope you enjoyed this episode. It's something that we've seen, from a number of our clients in the SDR Like the Best program. As their kids are getting older, they're looking forward to that next chapter in life together. As you're listening to this, if this resonates with you, please leave a comment. Let us know. That'll help us develop topics for future conversations.
Yep.
We'll bring some of our clients onto the show as well, talk about their experiences. If you like what you're hearing, if you'll like or subscribe. We don't have any sponsors or ads for this podcast. We rely on your support, and if you will support us with sharing or subscribing, we'd really appreciate that.
Thank you, and we will see you in the next episode.
See you next episode.